we go back to that's the American studies. They looked at training twice a week and training the full body. So you're training all those major movement patterns twice a week. And
this was the Wisconsin-based study.
This was the Wisconsin study. And they saw substantial improvement in strength and therefore muscle mass and therefore posture improvements as a result. So that's the minimum. And with all these, again, with all these studies, the one overriding factor that comes out of it, again, go back to that Dallas one with the cardiovascular, the one comment that came out of it was that consistency is the most important thing, and also time. The Dallas study they said it's 2 years. It takes 2 years to get to the point where you've got a manageable level of fitness that, as long as you do the right things, can then stay with you. But it's a 2-year plan, and if you don't have 2 years in mind, you're not going. The likelihood of failure is high. So, if we start from that point there, where you're twice a week going in the gym, and you are hitting all those major movement patterns, that's your starting point. Anything less than that, you're not going to get the results.
So it looks like it's 15 to 18 sets per muscle per week to achieve to get done for the biggest returns.
If we're talking about having the 5 movement patterns, and we're doing those 5 movement patterns twice a week, we are going to need to try and train at least 3 sets of your upper ranges for each of those. So yeah, we've got something like 30 sets of exercise that you're going to be doing per week as a minimum, and that is for a non-specific, just health-orientated goal marker. So if you want to do more, if you want to achieve more than that or add elements to it, then there's the volume that goes up.
So in reality, it's probably more like 40 to 50 sets per week to fit into a workout program routine to achieve best results.
If we're looking at best results
returns.
and we're trying to get this longevity message out, and yes.
Yeah. So in theory, within one good training session, you might get you're going to get solid 20 sets done. You could train hard twice a week, probably a third time per week, to get the intensity, the volume you need to get done.
You could. You almost think looking at 3 times a week if you were trying to maximise this blueprint that we're talking about.
So with that in mind, though, if someone's training and often people do 5 days per week doing strength work, how much of that's a waste of time? Because there's no way for most people you can get the recovery time needed to optimize, maximize return, whether it's on strength or a size basis, being that frequent, hitting the same areas again and again and again.
No, and especially when you're trying to do all these other things as well. If you're trying to maximize, as we've said, your VO2 output, and you're trying to make yourself as strong as possible, whilst building in some desire for sort of cosmetic enhancement, build the size of the muscle up, and you got all of your zone 2 stuff, which keeps the engine size the way you want it. It's a huge amount of output that you've got to try and find.
Because the Wisconsin study, what that showed was it was doing specifically supersetting 3 days per week, I think, from memory, at a high intensity rep range of 8 to 10 back-to-back sets. Then agonist, antagonist.
Exactly, so you're working across the body. So you work one side of the body straight to the other side of the body. Yeah. And the beauty of that, as pointed out, was that with the right exercise choices, because what you were doing was you were increasing the range of motion on one side of the body by working the other side of the body, and then vice versa, then rest. And so primarily this found, this again was for 50 plus. This was done, I'm sure it would be the same with females, but this was done on 50 plus males. But what it showed was that to get the greatest level of strength and muscular development,
and human growth hormone release.
So you had this ability to have hypertrophy at the same time as building strength. You did this supersetting with the rest period coming after the second exercise and superset, and then you repeat it.
Which for those listening as well, besides anything else, it's unbelievably time saving.
Absolutely. The workouts were 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
So it meant that in terms of trying to plan your week, you had a huge amount of intensity, really, really time efficient that fits the alongside.
So rather than doing your bro split of doing, practicing one day, back on the next day, you might as well just put it into one session, do your supersetting, agonist, antagonist, break it into 2 approaches that you could do upper lower body splits. on the days. You might do 4 days a week doing 2 of each.
Yeah.
You could do, or you might just do it as being a whole body thing within one session.
Also,
and get away with it.
as we get older, our ability to keep on doing those, pure anaerobic strength exercises becomes less.
Yeah, you
So
can't take the volume.
the
and not
idea
recover as
of
quickly.
actually efficiently working for an hour in the gym,
And you speak for yourself.
50 plus, couldn't do it. But so therefore, the idea of going in, you do your 40 minutes, do it really effectively,
quick and
and
easy.
get out. Yeah, you can cope with that.
But actually, even with if time wasn't the issue anyway, because of the nature of the human growth hormone response from doing it, it's still worth doing that way anyway,
Absolutely.
irrespective.
No, it is.
So besides that whole thing, I've only got 2 hours a week. Actually, reality to maximise return, it's still the best.
So it still works.
Yeah. There's a great bit of data actually. There's a study, I think it's ACSM, this quote, it's about the effects of doing strength work with all that in mind on our risk of death. I mean, strength training appears to be associated with 10 to 17% lower risk of all-cause mortality. Cardiovascular disease, total cancer, diabetes, and lung cancer. 2 key outcomes of strength training are muscle hypertrophy and muscle strength gain, associated with reduced all-cause mortality. So I mean, there's...
So that one's 70%. That Dallas one, which is the VO2 cardiovascular, 80%. 80% reduction in all-cause mortality. So this argument of really focusing your training and making sure that every time you train, you are achieving something. If that's 70, that's 80%. In terms of trying to prevent your early death, you're hitting all the markers. And so the blueprint really starts to take shape if you're doing it this way.
What's amazing within that number, I think, is not just the case of the obvious things about not falling so, but it's the reduction in total cancer and lung cancer, quite specific on where they were. It's kind of quite extreme versions of getting things. So yes, you're going to be stronger. Yes, you've got obviously decreased risk of diabetes, and your heart gets stronger because you're working out when you're doing the program hard.
Yeah.
But to reduce that inflammatory response by virtue of doing strength work, that's fascinating in itself and shows it's an absolute must go to. But the intensity has to be at the level in which you're getting that overload and getting hormonal responses and endocrine responses within the blood markers to make sure that changes. So it's
one of the other studies showed, as we get older, the heart becomes less elastic, less effective as a pump. It showed that by getting some of this training correct, you had a 20% increase in the elasticity of hearts of people who are over 50. So they're reversing the effectiveness of that pump, so that obviously the oxygen uptake, the pump back out, therefore the improvement on the cardiopulmonary system.
I wonder what the HRV change in that is now. I haven't seen anything about that at all in terms of how much that changes HRV as an average.
Because you're de-stressing the body.
Yeah.
So therefore, you've got to get sleep improvements. You've got to get HRV responses that are all positive, because you're just gradually making the engine more and more and more efficient.
Yeah. So someone listening again, how they utilize that. It's probably 3 days a week. It's doing the supersetting approach, the agonist, antagonist. Listening again, it's a push followed by a pull in the main. And that should be built into our perfect week, 3 days per week.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add into that, and that's what research had from Wisconsin, is probably before that is have a look at one of your movement patterns and do it from a pure strength point of view. So, for example, if today you were going to be doing, if you want to do a deadlift, then do your deadlift type movement, but do it to strength, pure strength. Again, beyond foundation, but do pure strength. So bring your reps nice and low, do lots of sets with lots of rest in between, so you can perfect that movement pattern, and then move on to something like the superset, the agonist antagonist supersets, as your then other parts of the body plus hypertrophy training. That works incredibly well.
And how and why do we change tempo within each rep that we do? Time under tension changes. Why would we do that, and what's the response neurologically and in terms of strength gain?
Gradually, with all muscle development, it's all just stimulus. Obviously, we don't make muscle stronger by going to the gym. We make muscle stronger by going to the gym, causing localized damage, and therefore the stimulus for the body to then repair itself. So that's why you can train as hard as you like. If you don't sleep well, you don't eat well, you don't recover well, you won't get the effects you're looking for, even though you're training. So exercise by itself doesn't achieve what you want to achieve. What it does do is force the reaction from the body to improve itself. And so the time and attention, by creating more time and attention, you're creating more micro damage. And that micro damage requires the body to heal itself. So it sends out a stronger. So if you're going from your normal reps to a time and attention rep, you just created a lot more damage than you did in the first style of training. So now everybody's going, hang on, what's this person doing? It then goes into a much heightened response mechanism, which is what you want. You've got used to doing that style of training. You've now moved on to this. So you're causing more damage. There are a million different ways of training, and time attention is just one of them. All of them have a place, and there have been arguments for as long as we've been doing this as to which one is the best way of training. And that argument will continue forever. In reality, the best one for training is whichever one you just moved on to, because it's a change from what you were doing. So you've just confused the body, this incredible mechanism. You've confused it to throw something new at it, where it goes, oh, hang on, we don't know how to respond to this. So let's hyper respond. Let's really go over town on terms of how we deal with this new stimulus, and then you see improvement. So for most people, that's why with a beginner exerciser, you see the greatest change, because it's a huge stimulus they've never had before. So they see this huge uplift in their improvement.
Yeah, well, it's why any sort of body transformation program is always bound to succeed and then doomed to fail. It's inevitably you're going to have this kind of, oh my God, I feel amazing for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, and you get a pump, and getting a pump is easy. It's just body responding with a whole dump of blood into the muscle to recover from a massive trauma, and then feel, wow, I look in the mirror, feel like I've pumped myself up, then leave it alone for a couple of days. Of course, just like a balloon deflates again. You haven't actually created any muscle fibre.
No, because it goes back to the same thing we've been saying all along. You've got to have the foundation. And the foundation isn't about to be going there and pumping muscles up. It's about making the body move well, about making the body strong. And then once you've done that, you then try to sort of seek out this new style of training that you keep bringing in, so that you keep confusing the body.